It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Eric Flack is the chief investigative reporter for WUSA 9 and has been on top of the RFK Stadium story as long as the RFK Stadium story has been a story, which, as we've covered, is like a decade plus, but obviously it has picked up steam lately because we have a deal between the Commanders and the mayor's office. But Eric Flack, city council, oh boy. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's start here. Just how hairy is this thing getting here?
It's a good question. 6, 5.5.
Okay.
Five moving its way up the scale. And I think that people need to always keep in mind that this isn't about, in my opinion, DC Council not approving this stadium. I don't think we're even there. I think there are some counts out there questioning where various council members stand and if they have enough votes. It is my belief that there are plenty of votes to ultimately pass this stadium, because I think enough council members, even the ones who have concerns, know that public opinion is for it and the city needs the business right now. I think the question is, like, whether the timeline is really going to match what the Commanders are looking to do, which is, approve it yesterday, and whether that ultimately has, long-term impacts on the financial get back for the city with what the city, the stadium can be used for. Specifically, the Commanders continue to, give the example of not being able to bid on the 2030, which would be a host site for the 2031 Women's World Cup, which is going to be in North America. So, but I will say this about the scale. The scale is going up by the day because the Commanders and the mayor are ramping up voicing their frustration about DC Council, in their mind, taking their time. And DC Council, certain members of DC Council, are getting frustrated, feeling like they were painted into a corner by the mayor with this deal to begin with, and at a time of the city's first budget deficit in decades, and in the middle of trying to figure out their own budget, being kind of like arm wrestled into approving this ASAP, or being pressured into feeling like they have to approve this ASAP. And that doesn't work with politicians in general, all of whom are kind of control freaks and kind of wanted things the way they want it. So, I think tensions are escalating, and that's not a good thing for the stadium.
So let's take a step back even further, Eric. And for those that haven't heard the latest news that you've been reporting on, that Phil Mendelson, who's the DC City Council chairperson, he had said previously, like, this is all part of the budget as it was proposed by the mayor. We're going to vote on it. We're going to do the best we can to try to do it on time. We might need a little bit of an extension, et cetera, et cetera. But he had said that we're not going to, at least from what I had read, and I think direct quotes from him, I am not going to pull this out separately, which is something some of the actual council members wanted. They're like, hey, this is $1 billion project. Like, we should be looking at this separately outside of the budget, omnibus style, if you will. Now, Mendelson is saying that is a possibility, or is that definitely going to happen? Where are we at with kind of the mechanics here?
It has happened. They pulled it out of the budget, yeah.
Okay, so they pulled it out of the budget, which means what? Here's where you go again.
It means that they're going to hammer out the budget. They're going to focus over the next couple of weeks and into July on the budget itself, and which is our public safety, which is transportation, which is all the other things, our environmental programs, all the other things that the city has to, budget for to run its operations, city services, garbage collection, all that sort of stuff. And they're doing it at a time when the federal government has asked them to cut a ton of money or to limit their spending, which has complicated the process even more. So they say this is a budget unlike one they've ever really had to wrestle with in some time. Once they lock the budget up, they can then move on to some sort of individual legislation that addresses the stadium itself individually. It will just be a stadium bill. And, the mechanisms for the stadium are things like, taking out bonds to help pay for it, creating authorities to do the parking, making a resolution to build the youth sports complex, the housing piece of it. That's all its own separate one legislative bill, which is kind of what council members have been complaining about in the first place, saying this is a huge project. It's enough on its own rather than to jam it in with an entire other budget. And then they will address that after they have approved a budget, for the next 2 years. They will then move on to the stadium issue, which will, I'm being told by council members, draw the debate out into August at least, and then potentially people are saying into September, and that's where the Commanders really start getting their panties in a wad, because that's the type of delays they really, really say are going to be, in their eyes, painful and harmful to this stadium getting done on time by 2030, which has always been the goal.
Eric Flack, chief investigative reporter at WUSA 9, with us. So that now that they pulled it out and we're looking at some kind of delay, the city council is saying this is still fine. We'll get what we need to done. The Commanders saying what they're doing, and you go back to the old J school mantra. I don't know if they taught this at North Carolina, Eric, but this is what we learned at Syracuse: that if one person says it's raining and if one person says it's not, your job is to go outside and find out. So have we been able to find out, how real is the risk here of the things that the Commanders are threatening? That would be part one of the question. They also taught me not to ask two-part questions, but I'm going to break that rule. So how real are the threats here in terms of not having this thing done by 2030 when they want the 2031 Women's World Cup and other events being threatened because of that? Nevertheless, a year in the new stadium, one more year of having to play at the current version of FedEx Field / Northwest Stadium. And then, so how real? And then part two, how much does City Council care about that?
Those are good questions. Part one is, I think, TBD, because I think even council members question, is an extra month really going to maybe the difference at this point between them not making a timeline to be able to bid on the Women's World Cup or open the year in the new stadium? That I think, and I think at this point, council members are trying to figure out if the Commanders are bluffing just because they want their stadium deal approved immediately, or if there's real danger there, because I think there are council members, even those who want to slow roll the consideration of the bill, who also understand that if we're spending this much money on a stadium, we need to get back what we can get back as soon as we can start getting it back. And that Women's World Cup host city bid is a real tangible thing that would bring real dollars in the actual, not too distant future back to DC with this stadium. You're starting to pay it off almost immediately. And so there is an understanding that that really would be a missed opportunity if DC Council extend this to a point where they would put that at risk. On the other hand, I'm not sure, because of the way this process goes, how much DC Council trusts the Commanders' timeline and ultimatums about, you're going to cost us our shot at bidding on the, Women's World Cup or being a host city. Part two of the question was, how
much do they actually care about it?
I think they care. I think they don't want to be painted into a corner by the mayor or the commanders. And one council member looked at me. He's like, I want to help them out, but I have constituents, and they elected me to do a job, and the job is to scrutinize enormous deals just like this one. That's literally why I'm here. And so I feel like they believe their ultimate job is to their constituents and not to rubber stamp something. And I think a lot of I will say there's a growing sentiment as to the city needs a better deal, needs to get back more from the commanders than they're getting, than the mayor got them to agree to. I think at the same time, there is, penny wise and pound foolish. And, the idea of truly, delaying this project to the point where you're losing, the opportunity for it to bring big time dollars back almost immediately is something that is very real, with at least some of the council members who are going to be involved in this. I'm not a stadium at any cost person, but I certainly think we're going to end up approving this, and let's do it in such a way where we can at least start getting back money. So I think there's kind of a fine line when you're talking about how much do they care about the timeline.
Right, which I was listening, Chris Russell was talking about this on his show, obviously, and Russell was like, I don't know, this stadium deal has to get done, and he was talking about it in the terms of, done or not done, and I think that's the wrong way, respectfully to Chris, to talk about it. It's like, well, what's the details matter here in terms of what the deal actually is? That said, my final question to you, Eric, is if the Commanders don't get this on their timeline, do you think they keep working on the deal, or do they go back to Maryland and just go, all right, we know you guys will probably actually give us more money. You guys really wanted to keep us here. Westmore, let's knock something out here. And it in many ways would be cheaper for the Commanders. They already own the land, all that stuff. And I know obviously they're getting a great deal on rent right now in the current deal, but that's one of the things I think the city council is going to look at. Again, details. But are we looking at this deal potentially falling apart and Maryland re-entering the equation, or is it just how much pain happens and what details get changed on the road to an eventual Commanders home games at RFK Stadium?
I don't think we're talking about this deal falling apart. I think that the toothpaste is out of the tube on both sides. I think DC Council has shown their hand, and the mayor has shown their hand that they desperately want the stadium enough. There's enough, the mayor desperately wants it. We know. I think there's enough support among DC Council that DC Council members realized they would go down in infamy if they fumbled, pun intended, this opportunity away. I think the Commanders have shown their hand with the press conferences and the PowerPoints that they want to be back in DC. And that it would be hard for me to see them try to walk this back and be like, no, I'm just kidding. We're going to build in Maryland after giving everybody, they're raising everybody's hopes and dreams for the first time in, however many decades that the team was coming back, that we're just going to go back to Maryland. So, I mean, they're kind of backed into a corner too. And ultimately, the question is who's going to blink in this game of chicken if, council members become one voice, meaning a majority, want certain things certain monies back, specifically from parking revenue is one that keeps coming up, which, we're building the parking garages, but not getting any of the money. That's something that bothers council members. And the Commanders try to play hardball with that, does it become a stalemate with some of those things? And that's the ultimate question is, do the Commanders blink? Because ultimately they're the ones who care more about the timeline than DC Council as a whole.
That is a great point. Eric Flack, WUSA 9. You can check his work out, of course, on WUSA 9's website And then you just watch them on television, Channel 9. That's the whole deal. Eric, appreciate your time as always, sir. Hope to see you soon, my friend, and thank you.
All right, man. See you.
Eric Flack, everybody. When we get back, a quick reaction to all of that, and then we get back to the Wizards and their drafting of Trey Johnson and Will Riley here on the Team 980. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. So we just had Eric Flack on to discuss the latest on the DC City Council, debate around the Commanders rebuilding at RFK Stadium, or building a new stadium at RFK Stadium, return to RFK. You guys get the deal. The deal, for those that are playing catch up here, the deal was initially negotiated by Mayor Bowser. On on the Harris Group side the Commander side has the largest private investment in an American football state or in a stadium in American history. So I think in world history. It's like nobody has ever paid for a stadium this much money. In DC history. So large or anything else. So rewind, take two. Now that I remember the statistic, this would be the largest private investment in the district in DC history. $2.3 billion or maybe even more. There would still be over $1 billion of taxpayer money to support the stadium, from infrastructure, redoing roads, metro stations, etc., to parking lots, to other things that have to happen. I don't know all the details because I haven't read them. I don't know even if I can read them. And I frankly don't even know if all of them are 100% worked out. But this is obviously a complex and complicated deal. City Council would like more time to look at it because they need to know the details. And there are a lot of details that, upon reading it, the council's like, whoa. I don't like that. So WUSA 9, reading from their story online, when they asked DC's chief financial officer for the total interest payments on bonds the city would need to issue to help fund the stadium, the answer was unknown at this time. Well, when the city has to pay for bonds, that money comes from taxpayers, so that's pretty freaking important detail. He gave the same response when asked about yearly payments DC would have to make on those bonds. Concerns over interest payments were raised by Charles Allen, one of the council members, at a budget oversight hearing in May, and White warns interest payments made by the district cannot be pulled from the city's capital fund, where Bowser assured residents all stadium funding would be derived. So, there's two different pots of money. There's the capital fund, and then there's another fund, and keeping those separate is important, but if you can only pay certain things out of one fund and not pay them out of another, and that includes interest payments on city debt or bonds or whatever else, then that seems like you'd be pulling from the pot of money that you said would be left alone. And that's obviously a problem. There's also concerns over hidden housing costs. White believes that there are also tens of millions in hidden housing costs not included in the mayor's stadium cost estimates. He's among a growing number of D.C. council members who see major red flags in the stadium financing. When the mayor is saying this is the cost of the city, it's not accurate. It's off by at least hundreds of millions of dollars, and residents should know how much the project is going to cost. This is complicated because I firmly believe, as I have for a while now, that on the biggest of picture levels, the stadium should be in DC. I've thought that for years. The return to RFK is the right thing to do. It's where the team belongs. And as a DC resident and city taxpayer, I'm okay paying some tax for that. It's more convenient for me to get to RFK than it is to get to Landover. And that's kind of what you're paying for, right? If you live closer to stuff, both your housing costs are more, everything is more, and some of that, if you're like a renter, you are paying more because the landlord is paying more in property taxes. If you own the property, you're just paying directly the property taxes on top of the market value for convenience, right? If you want a ton of land, then you're going to have to move away from stuff. You can't, unless you can pay gobs and gobs of money at some of the richest houses in DC, then sure, you can have land and be close to stuff. But even then, you're not going to live next to Capital One Arena and have a front yard. Those two things do not go together. So this is life in the big city, literally. It's more expensive because you are paying for convenience. If you want to stop paying for that stuff, you're not going to live in a place where it's concentrated. And maybe you're not a sports fan, so this isn't your particular thing that you want. But that's true for all kinds of businesses and interests and all those things. And I am an adult enough to realize that's how taxes work, is you got to pay for stuff. And if we all pay a little bit together, then it's easier to fund those things. I am also, at the same time, not interested in giving gobs of money to the richest people in the country who are the owners of these sports teams. So there has to be a balance. Everyone pays their fair share. Their share is bigger because they have more money, but that doesn't necessarily mean they need to foot all of it. Now, that is an unpopular opinion, I think. But that's how it goes in everywhere. It's the markets at play, and it's also, I think, actually fair. That, yes, if you own the thing, you have to pay the most, but if all of us chip in a little, then we all, the people that will actually go to the games, will benefit. And I was literally driving up Embassy Road this morning and laughing because they put a bunch of signs up. No playgrounds for billionaires, one of the groups lobbying against this site or the stadium. And I'm like, this isn't a playground for billionaires. Josh Harris isn't building somewhere for his kids to play. He's building somewhere that 50, 60,000 people a week are going to go. And another couple hundred actually probably a couple thousand will be working when it's time to play. So like even the lobbying process against, I genuinely find a little bit silly in this case. But that doesn't mean that the details don't matter. That there shouldn't be hey, if we're all going to pay a little bit as taxpayers, hopefully in the end, they are going to pay and generate revenue as well to fund other things that we as citizens need, from public safety dollars to making sure that our roads are up to date and our metro system is functioning well, and all of the other things, subsidizing housing because we have a housing crisis in this city, because we have a housing crisis in America. And so all these things have to come together. And if it takes an extra 2 months to get that right, it feels to me like it is worth 2 months. If that is going to be the difference in getting the 2031 World Cup and not, I think you should get as much as you possibly can done. And then when you hit the deadline, and hopefully you've worked out a really good deal, even if it's not perfect. Because getting that stuff is important and might make up for some of the things that you don't get done. Like you can make up time has value here. And so, long story short, kind of where I sit on this is to pretend like it's all or nothing is to miss the point. To pretend like this is all or nothing, that it has to be the mayor and the commander's way, or it has to be city council's way, or it has to be the stadium is there, or the stadium is like, it's all gray area middle ground. Getting it as right as possible for as many people as possible is the most important thing. That should be the motivating factor, not the measuring contest that happens in politics. Everyone needs to get their pound of flesh. That way they can go back to their constituents and be like, look what I extracted. Re-elect me to my job that I like a lot. You do the job, that gets you reelected. And I do think that there are council members acting in good faith, trying to do the job, and that deserves respect. I also think that this ownership group is made up of a bunch of good people who care about the city, and they're trying to do what they think is best, while already saying, like, we have put in a historic amount of money. But they're also smart and they're shrewd business people, and that is what it is too. So that's probably an unsatisfactory answer and analysis to everyone. So I'm sorry on that regard. But this is kind of, I think, a good reminder that for as much as some of the great politicians are great at messaging things and can create a visceral reaction, the reality is politics are messy. The way the sausage gets made sometimes is unnecessarily messy, but is also, like, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar deals. These are big things with really important details that, we missed this, and that could have been a $100 million mistake. Like, let's get that right. And having healthy respect for that, I think that I'm willing to give the city a little bit more time while acknowledging that some of these deadlines the Commanders are putting up are definitely real based off of how construction works, and knowing how long a project of this size will take. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up next, let's take a couple of calls. 301-230-0980. You've heard us talk about this most of the hour. And then starting at 5 o'clock, Varun Shankar of the Washington Post to talk about the Wizards draft. Never read the comments today. And then 6 o'clock hour, Brad Underwood, Illinois basketball coach, and your calls on the Wizards draft here on the Team 980. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Anthony, why are we playing Celebration by Kool and the Gang?
Well, one, I was hoping that we would get some calls to celebrate yesterday's first round draft by the Wizards. I thought we did a exceptional job. So I think that's something to celebrate.
I'm also pumped about that. It's just, we didn't ask for calls on that because I was like, we're going to be like an awkward amount of time to do the switcheroo. But also, I guess we could switch back to the Wizards because Varun's coming up at 5 o'clock anyway. But yeah, I just didn't know if there's anything. We don't have any calls. We have the old flat line. Yep, that's what's going on the phone lines right now. Wait, you weren't expecting that?
I was not.
No, it's an old favorite. Use the empty line to prove that there's empty lines. Empty lines. Here, you want to hear what line 2 sounds like? Line 3? Line 4? Wow, it's the same dial tone. That would be kind of funny if there was just like a different dial tone for every single one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's C sharp. What do you know? That's a different note. That's a B. A little flat. Anyway. Do you want to talk about the Wizards instead of the RFK thing?
I really just hope they just vote. Like, I hate politics, not gonna lie.
Yeah, politics is really annoying. I think the more I talk to people who have to do these things, the more respect I have for how difficult they are. And that is not to say that sometimes the forest doesn't get lost through the trees or the trees don't get lost because we're too focused on the forest. But it is the kind of thing where it's like, these details matter. A lot of posturing seems to be happening. The process never seems optimized because people are trying to play these leverage games and whatever. And it's just like, man, if we could operate on substance, like how much better would the world be if we focused on the right things and got some of the crap out of the way? And that is a bipartisan issue. Get the crap out of the way. By the way, I will also, hold on. Flack is sending me updates. Let's see. Yeah, so Flack did want to make one correction. And apparently there's some confusion a little bit about whether the stadium deal has already been pulled out of the budget versus it's going to be. Like, at the end of the day, that's going to happen, but it might not have actually happened yet. So there's going to be meetings coming up. There's some reporting in the Post that Mendelson, the D.C. City Council chair, said he planned to hold a vote on the proposal deal as soon as possible after a public hearing, which his staff said would be held July 29th for the public and on July 30th for the team and government officials. No one should infer from the introduction of this bill that funding in the mayor's proposed budget for the Washington Commanders football stadium team is in jeopardy. Commanders football team is in jeopardy. Mendelson wrote in a statement accompanying the bill, noting that the capital funding for the stadium remains in the budget and is expected to be approved in July. So, that part. This is all what's silly to me. It's like a lot of the funding mechanisms are in the budget bill, but some of the larger projects are, and the details of to me, like what it sounds like is some of the initial funding is going to get approved in July as part of the 2026 budget, right? And that's what they're voting on is the 2026 budget. What's getting pulled out of that is the larger stadium proposal. So on some of the later stuff, like once the stadium is built and these parking garages, for instance, get built, which the funding for them is in the 2026 bill that's going to get approved. But how much of the revenue from that goes to the Commanders, currently all of it in the mayor's version, versus goes to the city. So that's the stuff that has to get pulled out and voted on, which doesn't need to be done as immediately. And so I think that's also probably part of the reason why some of the city council folks are like, we're going to give you a lot of the money up front that you're asking for on the timeline. Like, you can start to get to work. It's, what's the deal going to look like on the back end? But if you're the Commanders, you're like, well, if you're going to change the deal, I don't know that I want the deal. And so it gets hairy and complicated and, political. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We'll take some calls on the Wizards front coming up at, let's see. We have some time at 5:15, unless we go long with Varun. And we'll certainly have time in the 6 o'clock hour as well. For your thoughts on the Wizards draft, Trey Johnson, Will Riley, those are the picks. Varun Shankar of the Washington Post, their Wizards beat reporter, joins us to talk about those guys next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the team 980. And just after 5 o'clock, it's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
My guy Varun Shankar from the Washington Post, their Wizards beat reporter, joins us now. He was there last night as the Wizards took 2 in the first round. And Varun, you were the last person I talked to before I left yesterday, just before the draft started when we were doing the show live there. And I told you, Trey Johnson was my guy. And then they ultimately go and take him. So clearly I'm just clairvoyant. One, I feel like we need to just establish that with the Washington Post for the record. But two, ultimately, why do you think that, really, I think both Johnson, or actually, let's separate him first. Why do you think Trey Johnson was the pick for Will Dawkins and crew at number 6?
Yeah, we've seen a pretty clear trend with the Wizards draft picks since Dawkins and Wingard took over. This is their 3rd draft now. They have gone for players with positional size and good feel for the position. Feel is kind of this amorphous thing that I define as they don't look totally lost on the basketball court. They look like they have some level of skill. They have some spatial awareness. And I think that every player the Wizards have drafted has had some degree of that. I think with Johnson, another differentiating factor is this is one of the best shooters we've seen come out of the draft in a little bit. I mean, not only is he someone who can be a really effective catch and shoot guy, he's someone who can go off the dribble, moving off screens. He is I truly do think he is one of the best shooters we've seen in the last few drafts.
So what does that do for them? Because they haven't had a guy like this, and they also haven't drafted a guy like this. So to me, on some level, Varun, this is a fascinating experiment. And it goes back to, and again, I'm not meaning to make this about me and my takes, but this happens to be a question that I asked Will in the postseason press conference about shooting and whether shooters can be taught because they have worked so hard with guys like Bilal, guys like Alex to improve their jump shot, or if it's something that's innate. And Will basically said, we can always up their level. We can take a poor shooter to an okay shooter, okay to good, good to great, great to elite. And they've never drafted in the great category before. Now that they have, what are your expectations?
I'm going to look back on his end of season press conference because you were mostly right in what he said about the fact that you can go from bad to good. But I'm pretty sure he also noted that you actually can't teach a guy to become an elite shooter. I'm trying to pull up the transcript right now, but I think that's
exactly. He said you can go from good, if you're good, I can help make you a lot better. But there's a certain threshold that you either have it or you don't, and we can improve based off that. But the starting point is always going to be relevant.
Yeah, I think so. I think for them, they see elite shooting as a more innate trait. They think that they can turn bad shooters into above average shooters, but I don't think you could turn anybody into an exceptional shooter. I think that you saw them value that with Johnson. I think there's also other stuff. Again, positional size is something you'll see the Wizards come back to again and again. They believe it gives you versatility, it gives you some defensive upside, and maybe just as importantly, his defensive upside for a guy like Johnson, who's not right now a particularly good defender. It insulates him a little bit because it allows you some more versatility on who you can put him on during a game. He is, I think, if you measured him as something like 6'4", but he's got like a 6'10" wingspan. He can guard conceivably, 1 through 3.5, I would say, depending on where you want to stash him while he's on the floor. And that can be really effective for him to be insulated in a lot of ways. Think about size can be often a sword for players. They can use it to attack defensive matchups, but it can also be a shield. It can be something that protects you and allows you to reach a certain floor on defense that you might not be able to otherwise.
Varun Shankar, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Will Riley, the more I hear about him, the more I get it, because I think on top of the positional size, which he certainly has, there's a competitiveness that has been a through line as well, and that seems to be the main feature of Will Riley, that he is just kind of a psycho competitor, psycho worker who's going to live in the gym. What are your impressions of Riley and why they ultimately decided on him at 21?
Yeah, I think with Riley, they were pretty impressed by his competitive nature in the pre-draft workout that he did with them. I think that they really relied more on his performance before he came to Illinois rather than what he showed at Illinois, because he showed more on-ball skills before he got to Illinois. He did a little bit at times, especially at times where Illinois was playing shorthanded. I think they liked his feel for the game. They liked the way that he had some guard skills as someone who had another late growth spurt. And so I think they saw that. They saw some shooting upside, and they decided that at that size, it was a worthy bet.
When you look at the backcourt now, there's Bub there. Obviously, Corey's still around, whether you want to consider him backcourt or more of a wing player. I'll leave that to you. Obviously, C.J. McCollum is coming in, and then you have the young guys. You have Bub. You now have these two guys as draftees. How do you think the rotation plays out this year? What expectations, if you have any at this point, do you have for how they'll play the 2025 season, even if we know these picks are much further into the future?
I think you see all these guys get a decent chunk of minutes. The Wizards really have a strong belief that the best way for players to learn is by getting NBA action early, even if they're not fully ready for it. They believe that getting thrown into the fire, as Brian Keefe said multiple times last year, is the best way to gain experience and figure out where you're falling short and that there's no substitute for in-game reps. With that being said, I do think that because there's more young players now, you're going to see a little bit more competition as the team starts to jostle for these starting spots. I'm really curious in how the Battle of the Johnsons, Trey and AJ, shakes out because, I think Bub Carrington is pretty firmly established as someone who's going to be a starter this year. But after that, there's a second guard spot. There's a backup guard spot. I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see who carves out the lion's share in the rotation there.
And, it's also funny, Varun, is like that just doesn't even count Marcus Smart, who, as a current NBA basketball player, is the best one of all of those. And I think sometimes we forget that because obviously these are vets, but because they're vets, they're better players. These guys have been around. They know how to play. There's just an institutional knowledge on top of still great athleticism, even if it's not quite what it used to be, et cetera. Marcus Smart's still a really good NBA player. Chris Middleton is a health concern, but is still a useful NBA player when it's out there. C.J. McCollum, his numbers are not too dissimilar to Jordan Poole's. He was averaging over 20 a game last year. So the veterans are there to mentor. They are also here to play on some level. Do you have any idea how much they will play and kind of the roles that they will play to help these rookies come along best that they can?
Yeah, I think you saw late in the season last year that the Wizards were pretty conservative with the amount of minutes they had Smart and Middleton in particular playing. There was a lot of rest days. There were a lot of days where those players might have been active. I can think of one game in Boston in particular where Smart was active but did not come into the game at all despite fans chanting for him to enter. And so, I think that will continue because, again, the Wizards are going to prioritize this long-term development above all else.
And then last but not least, NBA free agency is around the corner. Do you expect the Wizards to do, what should we expect the Wizards to do? I'll put it that open-ended way and make my journalism professors proud.
It's a pretty. I don't expect any. I don't expect any big moves from the Wizards in free agency. That's just not the way that the front office is operating at this point in time. I think they do have some space, and I think they'll use it on some players that can augment some parts of the roster or function as potential trade pieces down the line. Think about how they signed Jonas Valanciunas last year, and they didn't say it at the time, but a lot of the point of signing Jonas Valanciunas was so you could flip him at the deadline, and I think they'll do that again this year. Unclear who that player will be. This isn't based on reporting, but just kind of connecting some tea leaves. Kevon Looney is a big man who is a really good rebounder, something the Wizards really struggle with. And he was drafted while Travis Schlenk, who's now part of the Wizards front office, was in Golden State. I wouldn't be surprised if the Wizards potentially looked at him. I'm not sure what his market would be if he'd want to come to the Wizards, but I think that's someone that I'm keeping an eye out for.
That feels very smart. It does feel like the big man rotation has some space in it. So we shall see. Varun Shankar covered it all. Read his work, WashingtonPost.com/sports. Varun, good to see you last night, my friend, and we will talk soon.
Same to you. Talk to you later.
All right, Varun Shankar, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show, breaking down the Wizards draft and what is next for them. And, of course, in the immediacy, tonight, second round of the 2025 NBA draft, they now have pick 43. Of course, they had 40. They traded it away along with Poole and Sadiq Bey for C.J. McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second. So they were without a pick tonight until they traded back last night from 18 to 21, picked up number 43 in the process, and then took Will Riley. We'll talk to Will Riley's college coach coming up at 6 p.m., Brad Underwood. But next, actually, Anthony, we can do one of two things. We can be on schedule and be on topic, and we can talk about the Wizards draft, and we can take calls from folks, or we can talk about your pending trip to Paris. Because we need to talk about that at some point in the show. We can save that till later. But, this is Anthony's last show for a week plus. And he's going to Paris. And we got to talk about that. Should we take calls next and save Paris for later? Okay. You're not getting – we're talking about your trip to Paris.
Oh, yes. I can't wait.
But we're talking about the Wizards draft with you next. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. What do you make of the Wizards drafting Trey Johnson and Will Riley last night in the 2025 NBA draft? 301-230-0980 is the phone number where you can chime in on the Wizards NBA draft. We'll also talk a little bit more about some other teams in the draft coming up. 301-230-0980, of course, the phone number. And a little bit more now from Will Dawkins as we await the phone calls. Of course, the general manager of the Wizards who spoke last night, late night, after the draft finally got done. I'm not going to lie, Anthony. I felt myself getting real sleepy around pick 16, and I was like, I got to make it to 18. And they took a commercial. Before both the Wizards picks, they took a commercial.
Yeah, DA pointed that out. And I mean, to be honest, that probably always does happen.
I mean, I don't know. I'm trying not to do a lot of conspiracies, but they conspired against me, I'll put it that way. So I'm like, oh no. And I close my eyes. The next thing I know, I wake up. Rachel's like, hey, we need to go upstairs, because she had already fallen asleep on the couch. The Hoffmans were tired. And I see it's pick 21, Utah, proposed trade Washington. I'm like, oh no, I missed the pick, because I was asleep. I was like, oh no, I missed the pick. And then I see that, wait, the Wizards are on the clock right now. With the 21st pick, the Utah Jazz, parentheses, Washington Wizards, take Will Riley, guard, Illinois. Watch the Jay Billis thing. I'm like standing up in front of the TV at this point so I don't fall back asleep, remote in hand, ready to turn it off and go upstairs. Can we just make the draft earlier? I also don't think it needs to be 2 nights. I know they're trying to get, but like, is anyone going to watch the second round tonight? Are you going to watch the second round tonight?
No.
Yeah, I want to know who they take. I will have it available to flip to when the Wizards get on the clock, but I will not be watching the second round in totality. And I love the NBA draft, so I don't think we need it. I think if we started the first round at like 6, get done earlier, and then you could have the second
6
to make room for the second round.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 7.
Cram it all in one day.
But then like it already ends at. I mean, last night ended at like 12:30, didn't it? I don't know. I was long asleep. But it ended late, and there's a lot like, and again, it's not all about media folks, but like it's just the GMs have to kind of wait to the end of the round in case there's trade stuff to do their press conferences. It's just becomes an unnecessarily late night for an event that could start basically any time. Of course, you want it in prime time on TV. I guess you don't want to start it too early, because like a 6 o'clock start is 3 o'clock on the West Coast. So for like television purposes, that is probably a little early, but I don't know. Also, the second round could just go really fast, like 2 minutes per pick. Like, let's just roll through it. Maybe you start at 7 o'clock Eastern. I don't know. Just some thoughts. I'm sure there's very smart people in the NBA league office who have thought about these things and are like, hey man, just, have some coffee. Have some coffee and stay up later. Anyway, more from Will Dawkins now on the draft last night. Of course, the Wizards general manager taking 2 players, Trey Johnson and Will Riley. And I will say Trey Johnson will have to learn some things about how the Wizards do business, including which things are secret and which things are not, which led to a pretty funny question, because apparently he told media folks about how Will showed him some tape and some of the plays that he maybe took off in college and how that wasn't going to work in the pros during their visit. Very honest, very cool thing. I like that. Strategically, Will Dawkins obviously does too. He just doesn't want other people to know that he does it.
I got to get in front of him and tell him stop sharing house secrets, first off. I don't know if it was highlights, lowlights, or what it is, but when we bring guys in, we make sure that we get a feel for who they are. They get a feel for who we are and spend a lot of time here. And we're not going to sugarcoat everything. Michael and I, it's important to be transparent. There's a lot to like with Trey. But there are some areas he's got to grow in, just like every other 19-year-old player. And we'd rather address it on the front end, see if he can improve upon it, see what his answers are. And it was just fun banter conversations. I'd say he had a film session with BK and the coaching staff. It was probably a little nicer than mine. But in both of those, he showed his IQ. And that's what really stood out. His ability to remember plays, his ability to say, what could you have done differently? During the workout, we throw him in positions and offense and the plays that we run and see how quickly he picks up on it. And the guy's a sponge. He has a high IQ. So the film sessions were fun, but he's got to keep that to himself next time.
I think that's hilarious. That he's like, hey, man, no. But this is what happens when you're dealing with 18 and 19-year-old kids. And, I don't think the idea of a film session is overly secretive. I think it's how do you treat it? Like, what are those sessions like? That's the details that I think are the secret sauce. And obviously, it seems like the Wizards more than know what they're doing in those sessions, how to make an impression on a player and how to, make those sessions count to select the right players, which actually leads to an interesting question that Dawkins was asked later in the press conference on whether players are selling themselves to the Wizards or the Wizards are selling themselves to the players. It's a draft, so it's not like they have a choice, but you want players to feel good about where they're going. So how does that process work?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. It's a partnership. What Michael and I are trying to do with the organization, we're pretty direct with that. And we're probably not for everybody. Like, what we're trying to do is different, and you got to want to be here and a part of that. And we bring guys in and they meet with different people within the organization to get a real feel for what it's like. Like, not only what's your job, but how do you help players? If I were to be here, how would you help me? So they know exactly what they're getting into. And it's not the right partnership for everybody, but I think players who are serious about basketball and want to work and bet on themselves and use the resources that we're going to give them, we're typically good matches for that.
Again, Will Dawkins, Wizards general manager. On Will Riley, they risked not getting Will Riley because if this was their guy, they ultimately traded back. They had the pick at 18, trade back to 21. So what was the thought process there? Will Dawkins asked and answering last night.
Yeah, there's a lot, as you can imagine, that goes on. We're fortunate to have a deep staff that can have multiple conversations with agents, multiple conversations with other teams, and we're just tracking our guys throughout the draft. Will's someone that when he first came in, we knew he kind of fit our profile. We spent a lot of time on the grassroots watching and seeing who he is as a player there. He was different than when he was at Illinois. I think towards the end of the season, when they had some injuries, they put the ball in his hands a little bit, and you could see who he was back when he was playing with UPlay and playing in Canada. So we knew the type of player he was. He was someone we were looking for. And again, it's our job to be strategic as possible, get the most value we can for the future, but also try to make sure we get players that we like. And that deal presented itself, and it was probably the best deal at the time that we felt very comfortable with.
So that's how the trade ultimately goes down for Will Riley. On why Will Riley, here's Dawkins on the number 21 pick.
Size, versatility, high processing speed. He's, again, like I said, he's one of those guys who works. He had a massive growth spurt, and you just look at his face and his body, the way he's built, he's still growing. So he's somebody that we feel confident is going to come in the gym and push people and develop at his own time. But he has ball skills. He can make plays, assist-to-turnover ratio, and he's probably a better defender than people give him credit for. But we're going to test that out right away in Summer League and make him guard.
The wry smile on Will Dawkins' face as he said that was priceless. It's like, we'll see exactly what he is because we're going to, the competitiveness. I think that's what I enjoy the most about, both these players, Anthony, but, what I enjoy the most about Will is there's a feistiness to him that is healthy and competitive, and, these guys want to win. And I think it's important to say because it's obvious that there's a lot of losing that's happened. There are scoreboards, we know, and they're doing it for a reason. They're strategic, but it's not like a bunch of nerds sitting in the back room, punching spreadsheets, being like, oh, yeah, we are on track today. These are competitive people. Will played college basketball. This is a guy who played at Emerson. He wasn't playing D1 hoop, but still this is a really, 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 really competitive person. You've played with him in the media game. He likes to rib people. He is just one of those people that if you're around professional sports long enough, you go, oh, you're one of those guys. Positive. And it's got to suck for them to lose this much, even if it's got to happen. But I think it's a good reminder to hear some of what they're doing and get the insight into their thought process to be oh, yeah, no, at the end of the day, these are people that desperately want to win, and they just understand that there's some pain that it's going to take, and they're willing to go through that process and not shortcut it. And that's hard, but also, I think, important and impressive. So that is Will Dawkins, the Wizards general manager, perhaps a little bit more even of him later. I will say real quick, question in the chat from Multiverse Joe on YouTube. No questions about Kelly Olynyk. Will they use him as a center relief or just as a coach for Alex until they trade him? I would assume he will play minimal minutes. I mean, he's going to be a guy that starts and plays 15 minutes a game, depending on what they want to do with Sarr and who else at that 5 position. That is the one position on the roster where I'm like, seem a little thin there. So we'll have to see what happens in free agency. And that's the thing, is like the optimal word right now, I think, is flexibility. Certainly, if Olynyk can come in and play well, will they try to flip him at the deadline? Possibly. But I also think it's important to remember on Olynyk and Smart and all these guys that there's also an incentive to let their contracts expire and have the cap space next summer to be able to take on bad contracts and get draft capital. So basically the calculation, my guess would be, are you able to get more in return at the deadline or by letting the contract expire and being a dumping ground in the offseason? And those are not known commodities. You don't know for sure how that's going to go down by the deadline. You have to take your best guess, but I do think that is a good question and something that on the bigger picture is worth pointing out. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it'll be 5:30 on Thursday. That's time for Never Read the Comments. Coming up at 6 p.m., Brad Underwood, the head coach at the University of Illinois, joins us to talk about Will Riley, the second of the Wizards' 2 first-round picks. But Anthony, it is time for the thing that we do at 5:30 on Thursdays, where we put on our virtual hazmat suits. No, we don't flex. I was putting on a hazmat suit. Anthony was like, "Huh." Just because you've been doing a lot of bicep curls because you don't do leg day. You only just lift upper body.
Hey, I do legs.
No, you don't.
Not often.
No, you don't. You skip leg day.
Occasionally.
Regularly.
Hey, look, I'm gonna go to the gym when I'm in Paris, and I'm gonna be doing legs, and I'm gonna send you a video.
Okay, great. And then when you get back, are you gonna do it again, or are you gonna wait another month?
Now I'm gonna do it again.
Okay. What have I programmed of you had a crazy leg. Anyway, we don't need to get sidetracked by Anthony's lack of leg days. The point is, it's time for Never Read the Comments.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, this here radio show that is live for 3 hours a day, when I remember to hit go on it, is chopped up into pieces and put on YouTube. We've been a little lighter on some of the on-demand content because of the nature of news lately. It's like, hey, are we going to put chop up our NBA draft preview and post it the next day? No, because the draft happened. But we still have plenty of things, especially on some of our rankings that we're doing for Take Command. And that is where a lot of the comments come this week, Anthony. So on top of our hazmat suit, or maybe under our hazmat suit, you got your Commanders analyst hat on?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. So we did offensive and defensive rankings on Take Command. Last week, offensive rankings. This week, defensive rankings. That podcast out now. We'll play a little bit for you tomorrow here on the radio if you're not also a Take Command listener. But I'm going to play it for you if you're Take Command listener too. You're just going to listen double. The point is, on the defensive rankings, Anthony, we actually had the Giants' defense ranked very well. Their defensive line we had as the best in the division, over the Eagles, over the Commanders, who actually came in last, over the Cowboys. Actually, I might have pushed Logan to put the Commanders third, and the Cowboys wound up being last. But no, we wound up with the Cowboys third because of Micah Parsons' existence. So, sorry, that is what it is, even if I like the depth of the Commanders better. Their linebackers ranked out very, very well. And their secondary, actually, with the work they did adding Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland in the offseason, I think we actually had them first or second in our rankings, which feels crazy. But, go look at the holes and the question marks in the other secondaries in the NFC East, including the Eagles. And so, Ade Smith, RB7CE, says, I'm not afraid of the Giants, D, nor am I afraid of the other two because of JD5, our O-line, and the coaching. And I think that actually is an important point, right? Is when we do these rankings, we're ranking what's in front of us. We're ranking the Giants' D-line. We're ranking, the Eagles' secondary. What we're not really ranking is, we're ranking it relative to the other teams. We're not ranking it relative to the context of the environment in which it exists. The Giants' D-line might be really good, but their offense is so bad that the numbers at the end of the year I don't think are going to look great for the Giants. They're terrifying from a pass rush standpoint, right? They've got Abdul Carter. If Kayvon Thibodeau can just be a pass rusher, can he finally pop a little bit more? Obviously, Brian Burns is very, very good. Their interior guys are excellent, and Dexter Lawrence is as good as any player in the division, including Micah Parsons, including Jalen Carter. Lawrence is sick at what he does. But if they can never score, teams might be able to get a couple things on their secondary, because even though their secondary relatively is good, there's a ton of questions throughout the entire division. I don't know that it is good. It's just better than the other ones, and it has its own questions. And so if teams can just hit quick, easy passes, take the D-line kind of out of the game, get up a couple scores, then run the football and not care if they get 3 yards a carry, then their pass rush never becomes a factor. And so that's the thing that I think is worth pointing out is just because, say, the Giants have pretty good rankings on our little graphic that we make to accompany these episodes doesn't mean that the Giants defense, nevertheless, the Giants as a football team are actually scary if you're the Commanders, because we're not putting any weight behind this. The Commanders, their offensive rankings aren't great in our rankings, outside of the fact that they have the best quarterback, and that's way more important than the other stuff. And I think that is kind of the unsaid part about this that I now have said here and Never Read the Comments.
Yeah, I mean, I get, the coaching stuff does matter, but also I'm just under the impression, players go out there and play. And I think from face value, when you look at, what they do have on that defensive line and then adding Abdul Carter to it, I think it makes to me, I think the D-line is the scariest in the NFL. They have a dominant front. And then when you talk about the free agent acquisitions as well, you can talk about that too. But I think the front four is what matters the most when I look at the Giants defense, and it's the
They're
most
really good,
intimidating in the division. So I have no problem with it, to be honest.
Yeah, they're really good, but that doesn't mean the Giants are going to be really good, and we're allowed to have both of those things be true. On the offensive side of the ball, we were talking about Jaden Daniels, who we did rank as the top quarterback in the division. But KZH7475 didn't want to stop there. He goes, yeah, you guys listen to the national pundits who really can't bring themselves to really believe in this team. Jaden is not the fifth best quarterback in the NFL, which is what we said, behind the universally, except for this guy, accepted Big Four. He is no less than third best. Other than JD, only Mahomes and Allen have won big with very little around them. Didn't Joe Burrow go to a Super Bowl? He's actually been farther than Allen and Jackson. So it would seem like he's earned some stuff. Lamar has been probably the best player in football the last 2 years. He won the MVP 2 years ago. Allen gets it this past year. But Lamar was significantly better in 24 than he was in 23. Just that Allen was just as good in 24. Which, again, I would have actually voted Allen the MVP in 23 and Lamar in 24. The other voter, or the actual voters, got that backwards, in my opinion. But point is, like, Jaden was great last year. No one is saying he was bad. No one is saying that he doesn't have the potential to keep going. But, like, the other guys have done it at such a high level for so long. And the difference statistically is there in terms of efficiency as well. When you watch the games, there's just a higher level of processing. And I think Jaden can, and if I had to bet, will get there. But it's okay to not be in a rush. And it's okay to acknowledge the greatness of other players. And I don't get how you watch Lamar Jackson last year, how you watch Joe Burrow last year, who from a pure, like, spectacularness standpoint were probably even better than Allen and certainly better than Mahomes, but Mahomes has the rings, and say that Daniels was better than that. I mean, he was awesome, but he wasn't better than those guys, even with what the support that they had of Lamar having Derrick Henry, obviously Burrow having Chase and Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say Jaden was better than a two-time MVP and then also a guy that's led his team to the Super Bowl. Again, like, I think guys just got to, take a step back, relax, take in this season, see how it goes. Again, like, this guy, Jaden, like, he did burst into the scene, but at the same token, not teams don't have a ton of film on them. They got years and years on Burrow and Lamar, and they've done it also at a high level for years. So just let Jaden, his performance, like, let it unfold and let it reflect, and then let him be the one that go out there and, show that, he's probably better than those other quarterbacks. But if he goes out there and wins an MVP, if he goes out there and wins the Super Bowl, all right, we can make the argument, but don't discredit those other guys.
And if he's doing the stuff that they do, if he's, throwing more consistently over the middle of the field for big chunk yardage, if he is doing less of his work scrambling, or he does just as much and, like, he proves it wasn't kind of fluky, but he also situationally it's better deployed. Like, there's just, I know it's hard to say, like, oh, he can be better than he was last year, because from a results standpoint, it's hard to believe. But, like, he actually can get better, and that's the difference between him as the fifth best quarterback in the league and him as the second best quarterback in the league. It's a fine margin, but, like, when you're talking about greatness, Greatness happens in slivers. Greatness happens in small margins when you're trying to separate great from greater, if you will. We had a mailbag question on Take Command as well that got a few responses. It's never read the comments here on the Hoffman Show. The mailbag question, Anthony, was about tempo and whether we should be worried that, like many of the other newfangled offenses that have happened in the NFL, whether it be RG3 in 2012 with the zone read or some of the other things that teams have done that were seen as innovative, the Dolphins and the Wildcat, et cetera, are teams going to catch on to that in year 2 with Daniels, and what can Jaden and Cliff do about it to avoid a second-year slump? And one of the things that Logan talked about in the answer was they're able to access a ton of their offense. Like the problem with hurry up often is it's like 5% of your playbook is accessible. You have a couple of hand signals, you have a couple of quick calls, but you're very limited in what you can run. Because Cliff has seemingly, and from what we know about their offensive verbiage, made things very easy to call. Often things are 1, 2, 3, 4 words and everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. The entire playbook almost is open. And so Jeffrey Meehan, 3116, says, incredibly brief verbiage that enables an up-tempo offense is actually a cornerstone of the Erhardt-Parkin system that Cliff would have learned in New England and the air raid school where the entire playbook is simplified. So we're getting a history lesson here, Anthony. Gotta love that in the comments. The West Coast system and its adherents, like the people on the Shanahan coaching tree, love the long verbiage. Bill Walsh believed in planning out literally everything. That's one reason why John Gruden never developed a young QB. He insisted on the full recitation. And there's a lot of truth to that. There is a famous clip of Chris Sims, the now PFT host and NBC contributor, who was, I think, a rookie. I hope, if it's Chris, if this is not you, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was Chris Sims. When they were in Tampa and Chris was trying to make it in the league, of him not being able to get this super long play right, and John Gruden's just crushing him. Just like you would thought Chris Sims is the dumbest person on the planet. And it's like, no, this is like a really long, complex play call, and it's F shift, right, blah, 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 can, blah, 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 check, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, you just called 3 paragraph long plays and you wanted this guy that's been here a week to get it right? But like, that's the position in the West Coast offense. Versus, I remember reading a feature about some of the Brady teams that went into more up-tempo at times, and how it would literally just be like blue. And Brady would say blue, and everyone knew what to do. And I don't know exactly how simple the verbiage is. That's something that I haven't asked around enough about, of like, hey, can you give me a play call? And I don't know if they would. It used to be a pet project of mine. I used to love tracking like verbiage in plays, calls, and did some stories on it when I was on the beat and the whole deal. But it is very, very clear there is a very simple language system that allows this team to get to a ton of stuff. And if you have all the possible answers available at speed, and a quarterback, by the way, who can make the decisions correctly once the ball has been snapped, that is definitely stuff for an offense, and especially one that is designed to put defenses at a disadvantage with the tempo, but also like formations. Like, it's layered in terms of its complexity. But some of the things that Cliff does with his wide receiver splits and the where he places a guy like Zach Ertz, like, it gives jaded information and makes things really, really easy once the ball is snapped. And so I do think that there's going to be staying power in year 2 for this tempo.
Yeah, I mean, I love the up-tempo offense. I mean, it worked for us. It seemed like, something Jaden was comfortable with doing, and I think the offense itself loves it as well. So I expect more of it, to be honest.
I do too. And they're also really smart about how they use it. They don't rush to it. And they also will use no huddle without going fast. And I think that's another delineation that's important, right? Like, sometimes they just get a group of defenders on the field that they want to go against. And it's like, okay, we're going to go no huddle and we're not going to sub, but we're not actually going to go fast. So it's like, everybody get to the huddle. Oh no, defense, we can't sub. We don't have time. And they're not going to stop the game for us to sub because they didn't sub. And then Cliff is just staring at the defense. Like, okay, you got one too many linebackers on the field because I got this personnel grouping. Let's get Austin here. Let's get Zach here. Let's get Terry lined up in this mismatch, whatever it is, and let's cook. And like being able to do that, the old "be quick but don't hurry" John Wooden basketball mantra actually kind of works as a way for the Commanders offensively as well. Terry McLaurin, another topic of conversation this week in the comments, thanks to the Take Command mailbag. We got a question, Anthony, did Logan and I, about would Terry be seen differently if he was a first-round pick versus a third-round pick? And we're talking about how he's talked about around the league and the contractual obligations. Drew some interesting feedback. One, we got this from DC Jamming. I love Terry, but if you take the name out of it, $30 million a year for a 30-year-old wide receiver is insane. Even though we have the cap room now, that will surely come back to bite us. I just don't agree with that. Like, people are people. They're all individuals. And there are certainly some guiding principles. I'm not saying you should just ignore and like, hey, flashing red light, don't stop. Like, no, that's a stop sign. I mean, you should go, let's stop. Let's survey the scene. Okay, there's no cars here. Keep on going. And that's kind of how I treat this. Is like, yes, Terry is 30 years old. He came into the league a little older with a little less mileage on him because of his snap count being lower and the role he played at Ohio State. And there is literally no signs of him slowing down. There are zero signs. Maybe the fastest he's ever looked in the NFL was last year. We've been waiting for years. Like, one of the highlights I remember of him at Ohio State when he came out that I remember watching was like him catching a slant and taking it like 80 yards to the house. And I was like, who's this kid that the Commanders just drafted? Holy crap, this is going to be fun. And then I don't think he ever had a touchdown like that until this past year. We're in back-to-back games in the playoffs. The last two games of the season, he took a screen pass 50 yards against the Lions. And then people forget this because it feels like they lost 55-0, but it wasn't actually 55-0. In the Eagles game, he caught a slant on Darius Slay, ran away from him and everybody else and took it to the house. Like, yes, is he 30? Or will he be 30, I think, in September? Yes. But has he shown any signs of decline? Not a single one. And at that point, you just have to go, all right, we're guaranteeing money for 2 years. I'm good with that. That's how I see it. I'm sure the Commanders are trying to make some kind of different argument, at least from a guarantees or a money standpoint. But, like, to me, for Terry, the age thing, not that I'm looking to give him a 7-year deal, but, like, more or less the age doesn't matter.
No, I'm in full agreement with you. There are no signs of him slowing down, so I don't see why we wouldn't, give him what he's asking for kind of thing. And if we don't, I'm pretty sure there's going to be another team that is out there that will be willing to, give him the money. So I'd rather not lose this guy. He's meant so much to the organization. And I think now that he finally has a quarterback, we're finally starting to see, like, what he ultimately could be.
Right. He's been the same guy the whole time. And last year, the big difference was the quarterback. But, like, okay, is he not going to do that with a really great quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem like what's going to happen. All right. We also had this thought on Terry, which I thought was more correct in terms of what we think about his public, like the view of him in the public and maybe even amongst teams. Young Feet, spelled P-H-E-E-T, 7, says, I don't know if this has anything to do with draft position. Tyreek Hill was a 5th-round pick. The Commanders were just unwatchable as a franchise for most of his career. I do think winning affects the way we view players in every single sport. And this sounds silly, but in an unreasonable way. Like, we will overrate guys on winning teams and underrate guys on losing teams. Because it's like, well, how good could he really be? They're losing. Oh, that guy's obviously awesome. He was a part of a championship team. And I'm not saying Tyreek is overrated. And I think it's also worth pointing out that nobody ever doubted Tyreek Hill's talent. Tyreek Hill did an abominable thing in college. I believe he hit his pregnant girlfriend down a flight of stairs. And that's why he was a late-round pick. And a lot of teams would not have touched him with a 10-foot pole. And the continuation of him and domestic violence-related stories since he's been a pro, I think, justifies that. But as a talent, certainly people look at him as a superstar. And I think part of the reason he gets away with, reputationally, with the absolute heinous things he's done or alleged to have done off the field is because he's awesome at football. And he's a different caliber of player, purely as a player, than Terry. I do think, though, that the stink of the burgundy and gold did hurt Terry in terms of like, okay, yeah, he's a 1,000-yard receiver, but like someone has to catch passes in Washington. And then people were like, oh, actually, he's not just someone. He's catching those passes and doing the damage because he's Terry freaking McLaurin, and that means something different than what we thought. All right. You ready for some fun to end here at the expense of my good friend Tony Squares?
Yes, sir.
So we did on our my YouTube show that I do on Mondays with my guy Tony Squares, who's a content creator on the interwebs. We did our NFC power rankings, Tony's power rankings to be specific, and you know he had a good start, and then things got a little sideways when he at number 5 put the Dallas Cowboys, and the Commanders were still on the board. He put the 49ers at 6, and then the Commanders at 7. And you ready for the reactions to that, Anthony?
Uh-oh.
Jay reacts with 2 Z's. Never have him on again. Thanks. Spencer Calvert, 5851. Have consistently watched your collaboration videos. I feel like I understand your mutual and different analysis styles and can understand the usual deviation. This is a fever dream ranking, and someone should call Tony.
Oh, my gosh.
Next one. Nobody wants Dak. That's that dude. He lost all credibility when he put the Bucks at 3. I actually don't like. Would I have the Commanders higher than the Bucks? I think so, but like maybe not. The Bucks are going to be really good. That's not where he lost me. Carlos Allen, 4616. Craig, your boy is a straight hater. Lee Rubenstein, 2446. Give me some of what he's smoking. And a couple more. Final Anthony, which is different than you, Anthony. Someone check this guy's water. And then Metaphor Ariel says, this guy's a Twitter grade analyst.
Man, they're going hard.
They are, and he kind of deserved it because it feels ridiculous. Then again, it's June, so what do we know? I do think one of the funniest comments that is like an internet comment that pops up a lot is they should make podcast equipment more expensive. One, I always tend to respond to that with, this is a radio show, which I did get to do on our women's sports page this week. Someone responded, and her name was Karen, so I got to go, it's a radio show, Karen.
Oh, my God.
What's her name? What do you want me to do? But, like, can we think for 5 seconds about what that means? They should make podcast equipment more expensive. So you just want a bunch of rich a-holes who don't know anything about anything to do podcasts? No, they should make podcast equipment behind like a license. You have to have a license to podcast. You have to know something about something and not just be a lonely person who thinks people want to hear your voice, says the guy who's been talking into microphones for 15 years. I went to journalism school for this. What's your excuse, Anthony?
I went to journalism school for this.
There we go. We went to journalism school for this. For some of you, probably doesn't have a lot of faith in journalism institutions in America. But, you know, we can fight those battles another day. We get back. Brad Underwood, the head coach of the Fighting Illini of Illinois, which means last year he was the coach for Will Riley, brand new Wizards draftee. He joins us next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. It's our pleasure to be joined now by Brad Underwood, the head coach at the University of Illinois. He had not one, but two players drafted in last night's first round of the NBA draft. Of course, we'll chat with him about Will Riley, the Wizards pick they acquired in a trade at 21. Brad, again, congratulations. Thanks so much for your time. And what can you tell Wizards fans and tell me about Will Riley, who is one of the best prospects that Illinois has gotten in recent years, and obviously played very well for you this year?
Well, they're getting a terrific young man. That's first and foremost. A guy that loves to compete. He loves the game of basketball. He is a guy that lives in the gym. They've got a very, very hardworking guy. He's got a tremendous knack for scoring the ball. He's as talented offensively as any player that I've coached, other than Michael Beasley. I was an assistant at Kansas State when Mike was there, and Will's very gifted on that end of the court. He's a great playmaker, great facilitator, has tremendous upside. So Wizards got a good one.
Yeah, the more I read, the more I watch, the more excited I get about what he can be. And yet, Brad, you had him coming off the bench for most of the year. He ultimately wound up being the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. And for a guy that came in as a five-star recruit, what does it say about him, and what were the conversations like when you're like, hey, this is going to be your role for us? And he obviously excelled in it.
Yeah, he didn't care. Says everything about the character of him. He got off to a great start. I don't put a tremendous amount of stock in who starts games. I like having productivity off the bench and guys who can add punch, and he did that. He went through a little bit of a slump mid-year. It's one of the best things that happened to him. Is now he's dealt with adversity, and he's had to come out on the other side of that, which when you do that, you always come out on the right side. You come out better for it, and that's something that will benefit him as he continues to move forward. But we played him a lot as a point guard in practice. He was a guy that learned to facilitate and truly, even though he came off the bench, was one of our top two options.
Brad Underwood, the head coach at the University of Illinois, with us here on the Hoffman Show. I was reading up a little bit about his bio, Brad, and apparently mom was a hockey player. Would you have known that if you did not know his mother?
I would not have, but I wouldn't be surprised being from Canada. I think Will's got a great competitive nature. He is, I said all along, he's got a gangster mentality when it comes to competing and winning. And he gets that from his mom. His dad's a track coach. Yep. He's a guy that loves to win at everything, whether it's a shooting drill or it's playing 5-on-5. So he's a great competitor. It's what makes him really special.
Let me ask you a little bit about that more generally as a coach, because Trey Johnston, who the Wizards took at 6, is said to be like that, just a kind of a pro mentality, super competitive, takes it really seriously. The guys that they drafted last year, like Bub Carrington, super duper competitive. When you've got guys like that as a coach, Brad, what does that do for your program? And, how does that change how you coach a team when they're all that driven? And maybe even at times, like, do you have to try to settle them down a little bit in practice, or turn that down to make sure that they can get it back on and are fresh for game day?
Well, first of all, I'm never turning that down. I think it's the one thing that's really hard to find. We give all of our players personality tests. It's a big part of our recruitment process. It's a big part of our culture. I don't want non-competitors. I won't take them. And so I think that when you find guys that love to play, love the game. Will took over 70,000 threes last year just on his own. He's a guy that has a desire, a love for the game. The court is his happy place, and I think it's speaks volumes to who he is as a person.
That's you guys track that 70,000 threes?
Yeah, we've got the NOAA system, and he got up a bunch. He was a guy that we couldn't keep out of the gym. So no matter what what we had going travel wise, no matter what we were doing, he was always finding time to get in the gym. And he's a guy that again, we didn't have him all summer last summer. We only had him part time, and he's a guy that just found his way to the gym.
Brad Underwood, Illinois, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, Wizards take Will Riley last night, 21st pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Will, like a lot of other players in this draft, are reclassified, so he's one on the younger side of things. As a college coach, what have you noticed about kind of this generation of kids? Obviously, a lot more reclassifying because the NIL money is available. Let me get that money sooner. And then for a kid like Will, he's able to one and done get to the NBA. So what have you seen kind of the in terms of the landscape and who you're recruiting and what those kids tend to look like that are coming in a little bit younger but are clearly very ambitious and coming for a reason?
Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. I think you got to be a special talent to do that. Will was that. I fell in love with Will on the AAU circuit and his ability to score the ball. But I think his maturity, his competitiveness allowed him to be successful, and I think we're gonna continue to see that. Sure, is NIL a piece of it? Yes. Is getting to the NBA a piece of it? Yeah, it worked great for our two guys in Kasparis and Will, but again, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can do that, and obviously there's Will and there's Cooper Flag and I think Jeremiah was a reclass as well. So you get works for a few, not for all of them, but it's a pretty good path for those who have the ability.
Last two questions here for Brad Underwood, the head coach of the Illinois Fighting Illini. Trey Johnson, the Wizards' first pick. I don't know whether you recruited Trey. I don't know if you guys played him this year. I apologize for not double-checking that. But what kind of file do you have on Trey Johnson as someone who obviously is paying attention to the college game and might have seen some, at least, of what he did this year?
Yeah, there's no doubt. We didn't play them, but obviously we watch a lot of basketball. We see these guys grow up. I think he's probably, without question, my opinion, the elite shooter in the draft. I think he's a guy that again is loves to play, loves to compete, and again he's got a bright future in front of him. When you can score the ball and shoot it, there's always going to be a place for you. You pair him with Will, who's just a great scorer, great facilitator. Offensively, they found two guys who were very, very capable of putting up big numbers and having big careers in the NBA for a long time.
And then last but not least, Brad, just on a personal note, like what does it mean for you and your program to have two guys go in the first round? They happen to go back to back, which is a neat story, but two guys in the first round, that's big time stuff. What's it mean to you? What's it mean to your program?
Well, yeah, I think it sends a message that, I think we're developing guys at that next level. I think that we spend a tremendous amount of resources in the weight room on nutrition. I think that what we do stylistically translates. We sell out every single game. We're playing on the national stage in the Big Ten. We've had six great years here, and after our first two, so I think it speaks volumes to just the people of Illinois, the program, and everything that we're doing in Champaign is a real positive.
Brad Underwood, head coach of the University of Illinois. Really appreciate your time, Brad. Best of luck on the recruiting scene and with everything you're doing with your program in-house over the summer. And we'll see you here when you visit Maryland in the fall.
You got a great one. So enjoy him, and thanks for having me.
We certainly will. Thanks.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the team at 980. Taking your calls at 301-230-0980. On the Wizards' first round of the 2025 NBA Draft, Trey Johnson, Will Riley, the two picks that Will Dawkins and company selected last night. Let's go to the phones and get your thoughts on them. We open the show with ours. You can check that out in the Hoffman Show podcast feed. Just hit play on hour one or the full show. It was literally the first segment, so however you want, it's there for you. But let's get started on the phones with Mark. Mark, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. What do you make of the Wizards' first round of the draft?
Hey, Craig, how are you? This to me is just a culmination of a what if. I got a lot of sour grapes with the lottery, the draft. I want the lottery to be revised. I'm tired of 1.8%, 2%, all of these long ranges. I think the top three, I like what you said about a month and a half ago, something like that, about revising. I like your idea. The top three shouldn't fall but so far. Okay, it was the worst possible scenario, 2nd to 6th. Couldn't have been any worse in a hell of a draft year. But, I thought Ace Bailey. I really wanted Ace Bailey because I think he's got superstar potential. And he wanted us. He made it known to Utah that he doesn't want to go there. Utah did it anyway. I would have done it anyway, but that's typical Danny Ainge. But, I lost. I thought he was going to drop to us beyond all hope. But when I saw him look at his phone right at the Utah pick, I knew it was over then. Now, don't get me wrong. I like this kid. He's 6'6". He's a sharpshooter. There's nothing not to like about him. So, but it's just, it's just a forgettable. I got a lot of sour grapes the way things went down with us. Sometimes I think we're cursed. What do you think?
Mark, actually, I totally understand why you feel that way. I mean, if I remember a year ago doing the show and saying something along the lines of look, I hope Alex Sarr is a really nice piece. I like Alex Sarr a lot relative to this draft. Bub Carrington seems intriguing. We'll see about this Keyshawn George kid. And I think a year later, especially with Bub and Keyshawn, Alex was kind of what we were promised. And Bub and Keyshawn in many ways were better than we thought. And Will last night was very, very excited about the jump that Keyshawn's already made this offseason. Nevertheless, what we'll see from the other two. So I do think there's that element that is in my mind. I was a big Trey Johnson guy. I liked him over Ace. I totally get why you would take Ace Bailey over him and the upside potential there. I guess my question would be is there anything the Wizards can do besides eventually win? Or if all of a sudden you're looking at Trey Johnson this year and you're like, whoa, this kid, the Devin Booker starter kit was real like that. Will that change how you feel at all? Or would it always just kind of be until this whole rebuild thing works, you're just kind of man, we're screwed. We're sucked. It doesn't matter if people are doing the right things or wrong things. The universe is going to find a way to mess it up anyway.
No, I think we're going down the right path. I see the vision. This kid could turn out to be the best player. He's got that type of potential. I just wanted us to get a front court. I think our back court's kind of set. But, no. I think down the line we're doing the right thing. And I think that this kid, like I said, has the potential to be an impact player. Who knows, 2 or 3 years from now, he may be one of the best. Right. So, I see the vision, and we're doing the right thing.
It doesn't make it any easier, though. If I told you, I remember what I was going to say at the top. It's oh, hey, we hope Alex is good, blah, blah, blah. But, next year's the real one. Let's go get Cooper Flagg, and nobody will care about this year. And then when you're so close and you do you kind of even tank the right way, so to speak, and then you don't get it. Yep. I totally get your frustration, man. I appreciate the call a lot. Thanks, Mark. Let's keep things rolling here. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Anthony's fielding a couple calls right now, so he gets those up on the call screener. I do want to say this as well to Mark's point and to the kind of my response to it and following up and fleshing something out. All these little things matter because talent is not a given. Ace Bailey might really work in Utah, and he might really not. And that could be true here. It could be true in Brooklyn, let's say, if that's one of the places he wanted to go. But That doesn't mean that he would have worked everywhere or he would have flopped everywhere. Same is true for Trey Johnson. The same is true for any player, with the exception of like the LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama. Those guys were going to be amazing no matter where they went because they set the culture. They set the tone. And that's the level of prospect that I think a lot of people think that Cooper Flagg is. But for 98%, 99% of NBA players, where you go is so essential, and having the right coaching set up, the right front office, the right resources, the right development plan, the right role, you're brought along at the right speed for you, and those things are individualized. Some guys are ready to go and learn, and they need to play to get better. Some guys probably are better suited watching a little bit, playing in the G League, having that kind of half step. Like, every single human being, literally, is different. And so having the flexibility to be able to work with different types of people, knowing the certain ingredients you need to come in to make the recipe, but ensuring that when those guys get in, that you hit go on that blender, that you're gonna get what you want. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. More of your calls on the Wizards' first round of the NBA draft next. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the team 980. Taking your calls, 301-230-0980 on the Wizards' first round of the NBA draft. Let's get to some more calls. Let's start with Lap. Lap, long time no talk. Hope you're doing well. What you make of the first round picks by the Wizards last night?
Hey, what's up, Craig? Thanks for taking my call, man. I like the picks. They were really good. I really want to see Will Riley and see, his upside and his development, man. And, when you were talking to the coach, what he was saying about him, I want to see that because it looks like it's there, man. Just from the highlights I've seen, it looked pretty impressive. Trey Johnson, I really wanted him from the jump, and I was like, tag, if if Trey Johnson is gone, are they going to do Ace Bailey or what they're going to do? And I was like, but I do want Derek Queen. We could get him and then maybe get Clifford or Clayton, but we ended up getting Clayton, but Clayton, of course, went to Utah. So I like it. I just wanted to figure out a way that we could do the Derek Queen thing and see how these players can develop, man. And I'm excited because I haven't been going to any games. I'm a big diehard Wizard fan. I didn't go to any games last year because they just, pissed me off. So hopefully this year I'm excited to go to some more games, take my nephew and my daughter and my son, and try to go to some games and support them, man, and check out the new talent. And I want to see what A.J. Johnson does, too.
For sure.
And, I'm really looking. Bud Carrington, I'm looking for them. And Koulibaly, man, he's got to stay healthy. And I want to hope he make a big leap next year, too. So we'll see. And I think we need to get a coach at some point. I mean, I want to get his coach a chance, but I'm not really impressed with him. But hopefully if he can at least get these guys to develop and compete, man, I'll take that any day. And the draft next year is going to be crazy, Craig. So
next year the 2026 draft is nuts. Blap, appreciate the call, and hopefully we'll see you at Capital One Arena if we're there. Look, going in reverse of some things that Lap said. One, Brian Keefe is a guy who's got a great reputation for player development, and that is the most important thing right now. How is he in a crunch time moment, in a big game that matters? We just don't know, and we're not going to know probably for a while. And I think one thing that Will Dawkins has talked about and talked about last night is, you got to keep the main thing, and the right thing right now, or the main thing right now is long-term development. And they clearly feel that Brian Keefe is the best guy for that long-term development of these players. And I think he's gotten them to compete at a really high level. Obviously, there was a stretch last year in the middle of the season that was really bad where you kind of had to start asking questions of hey, is he the right guy for that? But they were able to come out of it, and guys never lost faith. You talk to guys in that locker room, you talk to people around the organization, they were all on the same page. And, the way those guys were playing from a competitive standpoint at the end of the year is what you want to see. And, eventually, will there be more questions about BK? Probably. That's the nature of these things, especially if you don't win a lot. And unfortunately for him, his career record's got a big hole to dig out of because of the young players that they're playing and the losses that comes with that. But by the same token, I think something we don't necessarily give credit for is coaches can develop too. And even though Brian's been coaching a long time, who's to say that he won't develop into a better coach year over year? I mean, I would hope, I'm sure Eric Spoelstra's I got to become a better coach year over year. I got to do a better job. And he's, one of the best coaches in the league. Rick Carlisle, all these guys. But obviously BK's got a long way to go to be one of those guys. And who knows what his capability is of getting there. And if not, then they'll make that decision way down the line. But the biggest thing now is are the players developing? Is there synergy between the long-term plan of the front office and the coaching staff? And I think the answer is yes. And in terms of a guy like Queen, I can make the argument for Derek Queen. Obviously, there's at least one team that really loves him because what did the Pelicans do last night, giving up an unprotected first when they play in the Western Conference and their best players hurt all the time to move up 10 spots to take Derek Queen. And I like Derek Queen, but an unprotected 26 pick when you could be a top 10 team next year in terms of picks, that is a heavy price to pay. All right, let's go to Pete in Laurel. Pete, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, man, how you doing? As far as the time, I just don't know. I mean, you never know with these things really, but my point is I just can't get too excited about guys who didn't start coming in as a freshman, getting picked in the first
Who didn't start?
round. Will, the second.
Will Riley? Yeah,
Yeah, and Keyshawn didn't start either, I don't believe.
And look how that
team
went. He was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, man, he was pretty good, man, but we still only won 18 games last year, and how many we won before that. And I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying I can't get excited about guys, and, by the time they develop, I mean, they're probably going to have to get traded because you can't pay them all. You can't just go young all the time is my thing. And this is just me personally, man. I just can't get excited about guys who just don't start, man. I could be wrong, but I can't, get totally excited about guys like that. I mean, they know more than I do, but that's just me.
I got a couple. I think that's a fair point, and I don't want to be like, you're wrong, you're an idiot. Like that's not what we do here. I think they're fair questions, but I do want to flush a couple things out, including asking you some questions back. One, for the not starting thing, if you're not going to start, winning the conference player or sixth player of the year is a pretty good thing, and he did win that as a freshman. So it is worth saying he was the best bench player they had. And I don't know if you heard our interview earlier with Brad Underwood, but he specifically said, he's like, I don't put a lot of stock into who starts. And this was, of course, his coach at Illinois. He goes, I don't put a lot of stock into who starts, but I really like having some punch off the bench, and Will was that for us. So he had a role, and he still played 25 minutes a game as an 18-year-old. And I think it's also worth pointing out that he was a reclassification guy. So he should have just finished his senior year of high school. So he's in the same age bracket as like guys like Cooper Flack, who also did that, as opposed to what you think of.
Fears
same
started,
thing.
Didn't he?
He did. And they're different players. There's a reason that Riley went 21 and Fears went 7. And that would be kind of my other thing is for a guy like Keyshawn George, for a guy like Will Riley, these are not lottery picks. And I think sometimes we think too much of the NBA draft like the NFL draft. Go look at recent NBA drafts. They had hard copy versions of the NBA's media guide for the draft last night and at the War Room. And man, Pete, I was looking at some recent drafts that were in there. The names that are in the 20s, there are so many dudes who are out of the league. The hit rate is like 5th round in the NFL draft. It's crazy how fast it falls off. Yeah. And so I do think that for an 18-year-old kid with his athletic upside, his accolades, his numbers were very good. His work ethic, to me, it's worth the flyer at 18. And we have to think about it as like a 4th round pick in the NFL draft, not the 18th pick in the NFL draft. If we're going to drop that corollary.
Let me ask you a question, man, real quick. Guys like Toppin and Brunson and SGA, those guys were picked, but they didn't stay with the teams that picked them, man. I mean, I understand the development part and everything, but how many guys can you keep? Or are you just, getting them ready for, another team, once they get a little older and you can't re-sign them? I understand everything. I'm just looking more down the road, like, are we going to be able to keep most of these guys, or by the time they really get into their prime, are they going to be on our team, or are we going to have to trade them off and they do great on another team? You know what I'm saying?
100%. It's a fair question. And the answer, the short answer, Pete, is depends on how good they are. If they all wind up being max guys because they all hit, well, that's a good problem to have because now you got a bunch of max guys and you have to make sure you pick the right ones that fit together to stay. But you flip some of those guys to other teams, you get more assets, you do whatever you got to do to make sure that you have the young talent to supplement your expensive talent. It's what Oklahoma City is going to have to do. For instance, when Chet and J-Dub get their second contracts, joining Shea on his second contract. But the second contract's not that crazy expensive. It's the third contract where things blow up. But I think also, those are 3 different examples, right? The Mavs made a huge mistake with Jalen Brunson, and if you watch Jalen Brunson in Dallas, I think most people knew it. Now, did they know he was going to be this good? No, but they knew he was going to be really good based off what he was doing in the playoffs those last year or 2 that he was in Dallas.
Well, the Knicks messed up with Toppin, too, now. I mean, Toppin, he's not a...
What I would say about Toppin, though, is, Toppin was... First of all, Obi Toppin's like an 8th pick, right? So super talented, highly, top 10 pick, but he really wasn't that good in New York. The thing is... For Indiana, he was a perfect fit. And I think that's where teams get in trouble is, do you know who you want to be? And this is something that I do think the Wizards have a very good idea of, and they have very distinct points of view on the game and the way they want to play it. And so they are picking guys who they think fit what they want. And it's really important that they get that right because, otherwise you maybe take a talented guy and he goes somewhere else and he hits it and he's better. And Jalen Brunson, by the way, isn't averaging Jalen Brunson numbers if he's in Dallas playing with Luka because his usage percentage can't be as high. Obi Toppin isn't this devastating runner of the floor. His job in Indiana is run faster than Tyrese Halliburton can get you the ball. And eventually he'll get you the ball. And unless he's playing with Tyrese Halliburton, we don't get this version of Obi Toppin. And so
I hope it all pans out, man. I'm a Wizard fan. I just
for sure.
To me ultimately, I mean, I know it's talk great, but ultimately, do you win or you lose?
For
that's
sure.
just ultimate for me as a fan.
Pete, so let me real quick interrupt you to ask you the question I wanted to ask you as a radio host who's following this and trying to talk to fans about this. Like, what else would you want them to do? Because that's ultimately, to me, like where the rubber hits the road is like, yeah, I hate watching the bad basketball too, or the losing basketball, whatever, however you want to describe it. Losing is inarguable. They've lost a lot. But I also think they're doing the right thing, so I just have to go, I don't know what else I'd have them do. So is there something else for you that you see that you wish that they were doing?
No, I don't know what the plan is. I think they are doing the right thing. I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm just saying, as a fan who doesn't make a lot of money, who would like to go to the games, and my time is valuable as a fan, I just want to win. Like, I don't like tanking. I like get the best coach. Let's go. Let's put the best product out there, the best players, developing and all that stuff. That's great. I love the topic. I love the sports radio. But if I'm going to watch them on TV and I'm going to spend my money to go see them, which I don't make a lot of money, I need to see a winning product. Are they doing the right thing? Of course they are. My patience is just running low. I don't really have a lot of time for it.
Pete, I hear you. I totally get it. I appreciate the call. Thanks for checking in. Mark Cuban had a great saying when he was the owner of the Mavericks, and he goes, there are a lot of shortcuts to the 8th seed. There's not any shortcuts to the top. And I think, unfortunately, that is very true in the NBA. I wish that there was a better way for the Wizards to do this. And this is why I asked the question. I'm open to ideas. I talk to people around the league about this, whether it's writers, like people I know who work for other teams, like whatever. Like, this is the way. The other way is you get really lucky. And like both ways you have to get lucky, right? Like this would be going faster if the Wizards had better lottery luck. Either the 2023 draft, or sorry, the 2024 draft class where they took Alex Sarr was this year's draft class, or the quality of it where it's like, hey, we have the number 2 pick. Amazing. There's a future Hall of Famer waiting for us at number 2. Or they had better luck in the lottery this year where there looks to be 1 or 2 future All-Stars, future Hall of Fame type players, some people think, in Cooper Flack and Dylan Harper, and you got one of those 2 picks, then yeah, you pick up the pace, things get a little bit faster. But there's only, like, I've kind of always said there's 7-ish guys, there's somewhere between 5 and 10, let's say, guys on the planet at any given time that are capable of being the best basketball player on a championship team in the NBA. And you got to go find one. And by the way, like, most of them are on a team and never moving because while they're eligible for that distinction, because that's what you play for, or that's what you build a team for, which is why, like, the Luka trade is so mind-blowing because he's one of those guys, and the Mavs traded him. And so I feel for people like Pete. I feel for all of you listening who are like, okay. And let's hope that Trey Johnson is a Devin Booker starter kit. Let's hope that Will Riley, like, continues to put on a little bit more muscle, the handle, the feel, the scoring, the passing, everything. His shot continues to get better, and he's a baller. And that's your backcourt of the future with Bub Carrington, and you got a 3-guard lineup, 2 dudes who are pretty tall, and Bub, and I mean, actually all 3 dudes have, like, great size. Like, that'd be sick. That would be sick. But still, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. And to get, like, Anthony Edwards is 23. And he still might be too young to, like, really hit it in the way that Shea hit it this year at the age of 26. So I hate to say it's probably going to be years, but it's probably going to be years. And, a year from now, we'll know a lot more because, that draft is loaded. We'll see where the Wizards fall in the lottery. And, a guy like AJ DeBonsa, who is the top guy next year and is thought to be every bit as good as Flag. Some people like him even better. That could be your cornerstone where you say, okay, now it's time to go. Pressure's on everybody else because we finally got our guy. But who's to say that, Trey Johnson can't turn into that, or Bilal isn't turning into that? It's a long run, and it's a lot of we'll see. All right, when we get back, Anthony's going to Paris. We have to figure out what he's doing before we allow him to get on the plane. You're a funny man, Anthony Haney. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony's going to Paris. He's leaving tonight on a red eye. He'll be gone tomorrow and all of next week. He'll be back on the Monday after that. Anthony, why'd you want? And by the way, you're going to Paris and Barcelona, which I keep forgetting.
Yes.
But you know who didn't forget about your Barcelona side of your trip?
You and Rachel?
My wife.
Yes.
Because apparently she sent you Barcelona recommendations.
She sent me a ton of things. I told her I was going to do 2 of the things for sure that she recommended. So.
All right. So what are you going to do in Barcelona?
In Barcelona?
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things you're going to do in Barcelona? Well,
I got to check the messages now.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't remember. Okay. Cool. Fine.
She did recommend some of the. So I got to go to some stuff called like Gaudi. I don't really know what it is. So.
Okay.
It has something to do with Gaudi. And then she also recommended these Pinksos bars. I think I might be saying it wrong.
Yeah, you are, but I can't remember how
But yeah, she said they have small bites.
Yeah, no, those are really cool. We actually were just watching a Somebody Feed Phil episode on that part of the world, and that stuff looked amazing. It's like small bites, and you like go bar to bar. It's like bar hopping, but with small bites. It was very cool.
Yeah.
So what, like, so you were ready to do some solo travel. This is a trip you booked a long time ago. You're just like, time for me to go see the world, and you are going to see the world. This is your first trip to Paris?
Yes, my first time in Europe in general.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what are you most looking forward to in Paris? A place that I was a little less than a year ago.
I really do want to go see the Eiffel Tower, of course.
Yes.
I'm excited to go to the Louvre. I will get on the, is it the Seine River?
The Seine.
Seine. I'll get on the Seine River. The food, of course. And also, I'm actually looking forward to walking around.
Yeah, it's great. I will say also the metro system is amazing.
Really?
The metro system in Paris was unbelievable. Now, I don't know how much better it was because it was the Olympics and like if they were running it more frequently, and it was, but it was very, very easy to get around. They also, I will say we got lucky in that they had like this Olympics pass that we bought for like unlimited metro for a certain number of days that was pretty affordable.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can figure out how to get that. But like, yeah, take the metro. Don't think twice about it. Don't worry about cabs. Don't worry about all that extra stuff. Just take the metro. That'll be great. You can get all over the city with it.
I was told there's no AC in Europe or in France.
It depends. Are you saying in a hotel or in
I will be
an
staying in a
Airbnb?
hotel.
Oh, you'll probably have AC in a hotel.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It depends on where you are. Certainly some of the restaurants and stuff you're going to go to are not air conditioned. There's plenty that are, though. Like if you get a little farther outside of the city, then yeah, there's a lot of places in Europe that are not air conditioned and they just rely on the fact that it's supposed to be cool enough to not deal with it. Or you can just like use a fan. But with climate change, not quite anymore. It's hotter than hell over there. But yeah, Paris was, the Louvre is great. I will say my favorite art museum though, Le Musée d'Orsay. I enjoyed.
You text me that.
Yeah, Le Musée d'Orsay. It's right on the river. Amazing, amazing art museum. The Louvre is worth going to because it's the Louvre, La Louvre. But Le Musée d'Orsay, amazing.
Oh, one more thing. I'm excited to go to Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland
Wait,
or Disney World.
You're spending part of your time in Paris at
I'm spending
Disneyland.
the day before my birthday in Disneyland.
Amazing.
I've never gone to any of them, so that Monday I will be
that's
dedicating
funny.
all of my time to that park.
That is funny. Okay. Is there a food you're most looking forward to?
No, there are a couple of restaurants. I'm going to something called Mama Pink. I'm going to another Italian restaurant as well. I looked up a brunch spot that's supposed to really have really great pancakes.
Okay.
But all the spots I looked up, they keep on saying they're going to be long lines, so I couldn't even make reservation for them.
You got to go early. That's the key. Just go early. Yeah. The French eat very late. I told you, the spot to go, our favorite meal, I think when we were there, we had a bunch of great ones. I can send you our list too, or have Rachel send it. But early June.
Yes.
Which is ironic because it'll be early July. But the restaurant is called Early June, and it's sensational. Also, just like do the French breakfast thing. Go to a spot, get a croissant and an orange juice, or a chocolate, a pain au chocolat and orange juice, or coffee. You don't drink coffee, but orange juice for you. The way they cook their eggs, like everything's just amazing. It's so good. Are we done in 10 seconds?
Well, we got a minute now.
Oh, I see on the thing that there was a time.
Yeah, I'll take out one of the minutes.
Okay. We're good. All right. Well, bon voyage, my friend. Bon voyage, mon ami. I'm trying to now think of what it is in Spanish. But safe travels back as well. How long are you in Paris versus Barcelona?
5 days in Paris, 3 days in Barca.
Okay. Have fun, man. I can't wait to hear all about it.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, enjoy some time off, and we'll see you when you get back. Tomorrow on the show, it's a Friday. So we will do Friday stuff. Clinton Yates will join us. We all will take command action, and we will see you then. Thanks for listening. More reaction to the draft as well. And don't forget, Mystics Late Night tonight. BetMGM tonight is next.